Welcome to our celebration of the League of Women Voters of Colorado, an organization that is needed more today than at any other time in its 102-year history. I'm Joanne Allen, and I am honored to be the MC for this evening's celebration, for the love of democracy and for the love of the League. We came to you last year in the comfort of your home, in an online community, and we've been asked to repeat this popular format to bring our friends together from all over the state. We encourage you to chat with us and with each other in the YouTube chat as we celebrate the spirit of democracy. Try it out. Everybody give us a hello in the chat right now. Let me see it. The last time we were together for this event was February 2021. We were relieved to have a tumultuous election and transfer of power behind us and hoped for a return of civility and the democratic tenets espoused by the League. Yet here we are in June of 2022, with the state of democracy arguably more in peril than ever, globally and here at home. Despite a lack of evidence and the dismissal of 60+ court cases, disinformation about the 2020 election continues to fuel anti-democratic messaging and candidates. Ideals that are antithetical to the values of democracy continue to bombard and impact us. From the threat of overturning the will of the people, to espousing violence against those who don't agree, to rising nationalism and xenophobia. What can we do? Who can we trust? The answer: the League of Women Voters. It offers a platform for activism, which is a cure for the hopelessness many of us feel. The League's unwavering nonpartisanship in these highly partisan times provides a dependable, steady voice amid all of the chaos.
What is important about today?
Oh, it's about your civil rights. It's not just about abortion rights. It's about your civil rights, a woman's right to vote, to choose, to be in control of their body. This is not about abortion. This is about our civil rights.
This is about not being shackled.
Yeah, we're not scared.
The League continues to mobilize to make democracy work and empower voters. After more than 100 years of women voting and more than 100 years of existence, the League of Women Voters is called upon over and over as a force to be reckoned with in defense of democracy. The League is a champion in making sure that every citizen of this state who is eligible to vote can do so easily and without interference, misinformation, or suppression. The League is a protector of the fundamental right of every citizen to vote to support their beliefs and their passions for the betterment of their neighborhoods, their cities, their state, and their country. Type it in the chat and say it with me: democracy now. In this unprecedented year, the League has been here for the people of Colorado. And tonight, we invite you to be here for the League, to do your part in funding the vital services it provides for all Coloradans. The League of Women Voters was organized here in Colorado in 1928.
I really enjoy the LAC. I didn't know it was part of the League until I just attended one of the training sessions to learn more about it. And I was hooked at that point. The people that work here have a wealth of knowledge and energy that I really appreciate. And I like feeling like I'm not moving a boulder in the right direction, but a few sands at a time. And that gives me a great sense of purpose.
We are here to celebrate the League's many impacts, honor 3 leaders who have broken barriers, and call you to action for all that still needs to be done. Here to kick us off tonight are the League's board chair, Karen Sheik, and our executive director, Beth Hendricks.
Thank you, Joanne, and thanks to all of you for joining this evening out of your love for democracy. It has been such a privilege to be able to lead our Colorado League of Women Voters the past 2 years. This year, I see the impact that we have made while knowing that we have faced some of our greatest challenges, with even more ahead. As we've seen Ukraine's democracy come under attack, we know that our own is jeopardized. The rights of women are being threatened. Firearms have become a leading cause of death of children in the United States, and legislation has been enacted, making it more difficult for some eligible citizens to exercise their right to vote. It's easy to become frustrated with the continued imperilment of democracy that doesn't show any signs of slowing down. But what empowers me is knowing that we won't slow down either. Just as the League of Women Voters has done for over 100 years, we will empower voters, we will defend democracy, we can make a significant difference, and we will continue to do so. During the last election, 2,200 members from leagues across our state educated, informed, and motivated voters through more than 280 events with nearly 10,000 participants. Our volunteer Legislative Action Committee studied over 100 bills this legislative session. They offered testimony and supported many bills, including the Reproductive Health Equity Act, the Vote Without Fear Act, and the Supporting Local Media Bill. When confidence in elections was undermined, the League was here to set the record straight with resources such as our award-winning, nonpartisan voter education website, Vote 411, which saw usage soar in the last election. What we have created is utilized and trusted by is a reliable and crucial source for election information. Tonight, we recognize and honor 3 barrier-breaking women who embody the spirit of the League in their word and deeds. One is a young leader, and the other is a legend among our ranks. You are going to be inspired by their stories and vision and their persistence to be change makers. Gitanjali Rao and Tony Larson have made significant contributions to Colorado and to democracy, and we are thrilled to be able to celebrate them this evening. We're also so proud to introduce the winner of the League's special prize at the National History Day Colorado competition. Clarice Reichley will be sharing a bit of her award-winning documentary on Dr. Rachel Carson. Thank you again for being here tonight, for the love of democracy and for the love of the League. And thank you for supporting the League of Women Voters of Colorado. Together, we can continue to be a force to be reckoned with. And now, here's our Executive Director, Beth Hendricks.
Thanks, Karen. I'm very proud of how we've shown our love for our country's basic democratic principles and processes this year in the face of threats from every level. I love that the League is dedicated to making democracy work. A big thanks goes out to all of our stakeholders for joining us and supporting us every step of the way. I especially want to recognize all of our partners, volunteers, and Leader of Democracy ambassadors for spreading the word about this great event, because we love to spread the news about all the League does to protect democracy and empower voters. Remember, anyone can subscribe to our e-newsletter in the link below the video. It's available to all and contains information about statewide League events and actions. Now I'd like to introduce an incredible Colorado public servant, Secretary of State Jenna Griswold. Secretary Griswold grew up in Estes Park in the shadow of Longs Peak and the League of Women Voters of Estes Park, which taught her that activism isn't just possible, it's necessary.
Hello, I'm Secretary of State Jenna Griswold, and it's an honor to speak with you all today. Since 1928, the Colorado chapter of the League of Women Voters has defended our democracy. From educating voters to advocating for equal access to the ballot box, the Colorado League has done so much to make our community stronger. And the fight for full enfranchisement continues on today, as we see a resurgence of voter suppression bills across the United States. That's why I'm so grateful for all the work that the Colorado League does to push for policies that ensure that every eligible Coloradan, no matter where they live, their race, gender, age, or amount of money in their bank account, has their voices heard at the ballot box. Thank you to Executive Director Beth Hendricks and the entire chapter for your unwavering commitment to Colorado's democracy. In this moment, what gives me hope is the possibility of what can be achieved when we work together. I look forward to continuing the march towards a more inclusive democracy with all of you. Thank you.
Thanks, Madam Secretary. Now let's meet one of our event sponsors, Irene and John Tynes, who are also the hosts of our official Leader of Democracy Watch Party. And Irene is the incoming president of the LWVCO Board of Directors. Wow, that's quite a commitment. Let's hear from the Tynes.
Hi, I'm Irene Tynes.
And I'm John Tynes, and we're excited to be sponsoring the 2022 Leader of Democracy and to be co-chairing the official watch party.
We're doing this because we believe the League of Women Voters is needed now more than ever.
Our democracy is faltering based on false information. And for decades, the League has been a source of accurate, nonpartisan information on which we can all depend.
The League's trusted voice is needed to filter out the talking heads and all the bluster.
So thank you for joining us at the 2022 Leader of Democracy.
And congratulations to our amazing honorees.
Awesome. Thanks, Irene and John. Now let's meet our first honoree of the evening, Gitanjali Rao, a powerhouse leader at the age of 16, bringing attention and solutions to opioid addiction, detecting lead in water, and anti-cyberbullying. Last year, she was named Time Magazine's Kid of the Year, a Forbes 30 Under 30 for science, an EPS Presidential Award winner, and a Gloria Barron-Young Hero honoree for community impact. She shows teens what is possible when you care and are confident in your leadership on the issues you are passionate about. She is a junior at the STEM school in Highlands Ranch and a researcher at the University of Colorado, Denver. Congratulations, Gitanjali.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Oh, that is such a long list of honors and abilities that you show. It's amazing.
Oh, I appreciate it. I like to say recognition follows with the work that I do. So I let my work really help me stay grounded and help me recognize that I am where I am because of my passion for science and technology.
So how did you develop this passion?
It's a hard question to answer because there was never really one aha moment where everything kind of tied together. I was a very curious 3 or 4 year old. I was always playing with toys and things like that. My uncle got me a science kit at the ripe old age of 4 years old. And obviously my instinct was to open it up, tear it open, try out, and all the different things that were in it, right? But the biggest thing that I learned from that is my passion for science. And not the science that we see there, but for chemistry, right? Things blowing up, things exploding, things changing colors. And at the same time, I had this huge thing for quite literally putting a smile on people's faces. I was that girl who would always ask to buy people presents on my birthday. I was that girl who would bring so many presents for everyone on my birthday, who would bring cupcakes, pay for everyone at dinner, and I still do it to this day. And I find joy in making other people happy, and so I decided to combine the two, and I like to call innovation using science for kindness. So everything that I do surrounds around this idea of how we let empathy drive the work that we do.
You know, before we started talking, I mentioned to you that we met about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And you've done so much stuff since then that you had to kind of like do a computer thing and go back in your mind, wait a minute, what are we talking about? And I recall thinking of you then as this incredible kid. Time Magazine's Kid of the Year now. How do you feel about that label as a kid?
Ooh, it's funny because a lot of people, it just simply does not stick with them, right? Because like a lot of them, they'll be like, so child of the year, student of the year? Like no, kid of the year. And honestly, I really like it. And the reason for that is because at the end of the day, I'm a kid doing what she loves, right? I was 3 years ago, I am now. I'm just doing what I'm passionate about. And I love to tell all the people out there, right? I'm here talking to you. I am running workshops, speaking at events because I'm a kid, right? If I was any older than I am now, I wouldn't have this freedom to mess up when it doesn't matter. I wouldn't have this freedom to take risks and try new things and be myself. And that's why I am really proud to hold that title of Kid of the Year, right? Being a face for our generation and everyone in front of us.
Speaking of your generation, you are instrumental in showing other young women that they can lead, that they can do things in the world that they're passionate about. That's really cool.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And yeah, one of the biggest driving forces for me is to help other girls recognize that they're not alone in this journey. Like, look at me. I'm 16 years old. I'm a female. I'm South Asian. It's completely the opposite of everything we notice as a scientist on the internet. Completely the opposite. And obviously any girl who goes into any field that isn't a female-dominated field is going to get backlash at one point, right? Whether it's direct, whether it's indirect, whether it's off a social media post, or whether it's to their face, they will receive backlash. And so I love telling girls that no one defines a passion except for themselves. No one is able to tell you what to do. And there aren't subjects assigned to specific genders, just like we consider it that it's normal that pink is for girls, blue is for boys, right? We started to create those stereotypes, and not always with a negative intention, but an unconscious bias in everyone's minds. At gender reveal parties, pink is always a girl and blue is always a boy. And I think it's not the issue that people are doing this with a malintention. People aren't doing it to undermine girls, but instead we haven't learned anything else. We haven't learned anything different. We haven't learned anything better. So my goal is to educate other girls, especially girls of color, to let them know that make this normal, right? We need to see a future where there's no longer girls in STEM. It should be surrounded by something called people in STEM. We shouldn't have girls in STEM programs or girls in STEM books or people of color in STEM or even kids in STEM, right? It should just be people in STEM, and that's when we know we finally crushed the stereotype.
Are you feeling super optimistic about the future? Because it feels to me like you are.
I am actually very optimistic about the path in which we are going. We've taken steps back, but we've taken even bigger strides forward. And I think that's what's more important, is I'm an intrinsically optimistic person. So everything I'm saying is optimism multiplied by 5. But I guess the biggest thing for me to remember is that every bad thing has a good outcome, right? We're always doing something to push community forward, to push society forward. So even if it doesn't feel like we're making big jumps in the world right now, I'm sure that we're all going to come together because I believe in humanity. I believe in society.
How does the work of the League of Women Voters, how does that align with your beliefs and what you think the future should hold?
Ooh, I think one of the biggest ones is this aspect of, I guess, freedom and people's rights to be able to put their voice out there, right? And I'm speaking at this from a perspective of someone who can't vote, right? The perspective of someone who's not yet 18. But I'm still putting my voice out there. But I'd like to add this other layer to a lot of what we talked about. You know, we have the 19th Amendment, things where like women have a voice, right? But I'm also trying to put this message out there, a completely different layer, that says women have hands too. We're able to build things. We're able to build our future, right? We're able to create things and change the world for the better. So we should stop waiting around for these scientists who are typically male to take that next step, right? Because we have perfectly good working hands that are able to take our next step forward. So women not only have voices, but they have hands.
Women not only have voices, they have hands.
Yeah.
Did you just come up with that?
I did.
That's very good. I mean, I'm assuming you come up with a lot of things on the spot when you're being asked. What do you think is truly the future of women in STEM subjects?
I think there's a lot to it. I think the most important thing is I hope to see a future where STEM is no longer a subject by itself. We're not looking at science and technology, but instead combining it with things like humanities, literature, arts. It shouldn't be an individual thing. The way we're going to change our world for the better is by looking at multidisciplinary approaches, combining things together in a way we've never seen before. And I hope that if we're continuing to empower more girls, we limit STEM to not just coding and robotics, right, and stop it there, but instead looking at the real world applications of what STEM should be. And last but not least, I hope that the future of girls in STEM is infested by just girls who have the will to learn, right? Who aren't afraid of what's in front of them. And I think we need to do that by introducing more role models and giving girls more individualized spaces to work and safe spaces to share their ideas and their messages without getting essentially pushed back. I always like to tell all the girls that I work with, I always tell them that we might not be first in line right now, but at least we are in line, right? And so we're going to keep making our way there until we are first in line.
And even though you can't vote yet, but oh, the day is coming. What message do you have for young women in terms of thinking about voting in the future?
I think the biggest message that I would say is go with your gut and go with your heart, right? Make sure that who you're voting for and the policies that you want to put out there are something that you believe has value. And I'm sure that other girls around the world will agree with you. So do what you think is right, not pleasing the needs of someone else. Do what you think is going to change our world for the better, not what society thinks is.
Gitanjali Rao, thank you so much for coming to see us. It's a pleasure to see you again.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm going to ask all of you out there in the chat right now, show Gitanjali some love. Let's meet our second honoree of the evening, Tony Larson. Tony is a legend, having spent a lifetime strengthening the democratic higher education and nonprofit systems in Colorado. Tony helped eliminate partisan gerrymandering in Colorado at the legislative and congressional levels as the lead drafter and promoter of Amendments Y and Z. She has been a consistent voice for fiscal reform at the Colorado Capitol for decades. For more than 30 years, Tony has been an advocate for higher education, training nonprofit leaders at Regis University and the University of Denver. Tony was a founder of the Colorado Nonprofit Association, a highly valued resource for thousands of organizations that serve the public. Her leadership is a testament to American democracy. Congratulations on your lifetime of achievements, Tony.
Thank you.
Tell me, how does elevating the higher education and nonprofit sectors contribute to increased democracy in our state and our country?
Well, part of it is being educated and understanding the different facets of American society. We need people who have been educated to participate in democracy. And it's one of the principles of democracy is well-educated people who understand the ballot issues that they're going to be voting on and the people that they're going to be voting on. And so certainly, and the nonprofit sector has a lot of organizations that are geared towards democracy or doing work within the context of democracy. And even that, if you spread it out a bit, the fact that you have organizations that deal with equity and social services and all those items that help people be able to participate in the process of democracy.
Well, speaking of equity, what role does higher education play in increasing equity?
Well, if my take on this is that indeed the higher education, when they are appealing to lower income people and using financial aid to help lower income people participate in higher education. And we have state financial aid, and we also have some of the individual institutions provide their own financial aid. And so they target students from low income situations and get them into the system so that they too will have opportunities that people with a bit more money have.
Are you seeing much success in that area here in Colorado?
I think we're seeing never as much as we really need. We need more money for students. I mean, there are Pell Grants that come from the federal government, and there are 2 or 3 different kinds of grants that come from the state of Colorado and as I said, the institutions themselves. We need more money. You always need more money to do that kind of thing. but we're at least getting some people educated if they choose to go. I'm mostly thinking about four-year institutions, but it also works for technical colleges and getting people into those too, because if they are preferring to do that instead of going to a four-year institution.
Now, what has been the biggest obstacle you've had to overcome in your profession?
Personally, or
however you want to answer.
Okay, because I could go back to money. That's an obstacle for trying to get money for low-income students. That would be one thing for sure. But I think when I started out, I didn't realize it, but women were sort of pushed aside a bit. I can relay some stories from the state legislature, which probably would be left unsaid. It's much better. But we were not thought of in the way that we're thought of now in the state legislature or in government in general, the League of Women Voters and women in general. So we're given a lot more credence now than we used to, and we actually do have a lot of input into what's going on with legislation and rules and making, and lots of other things. We're taken. I don't think we've quite reached equity yet, but we certainly are taken much more seriously than we used to be.
Well, now I'm interested in hearing a story or two, at least one story.
I bet you are.
I am.
I bet you are.
Tell me one.
Oh, well, the one, first of all, we used to be known as the League of Women Voters in Tennis Shoes. And that's the kind of thing that they would say, they being legislators and others. And part of that was because we didn't put on a really good front either. Some of our members would go and observe what was going on at the legislature, and they'd be knitting. So, I mean, it probably doesn't detract from what they were hearing, but it just didn't look professional. So the one story that I have is when I was testifying before the legislative committee, and one of the legislators was not very polite to me. And you don't do what I'm just going to say that I did, but I glowered at him. And he took the message. When I left, he followed me down out of the room and said, "I'm sorry." So, but there was a feeling that they could do that kind of thing, although I think they do it to other people too. But it particularly was because we're a women's organization. We particularly feel like they're attacking us, and not everybody, but.
It's a good thing times have changed, huh?
I do, yes. We haven't gotten there yet.
No,
we're working on it.
But
it is better. I used to go to the Colorado Water Congress. I was the only female in the room. So now, there are women who are attorneys for water, on water issues, and they're participating in all these conferences and committees and getting positions in organizations that were pretty strictly male dominated way back when.
Now, your work on eliminating gerrymandering takes on new prominence today. Why do you believe this is a pivotal issue, and what are the new threats, and how can we combat them?
Well, fortunately, we live in Colorado, and we have a lot of advantages that other states don't. There are 4 or 5 states that have a process very similar to ours, and I know the League of Women Voters of the United States has a project to try to get a system pretty much like the one we have in Colorado in place in all states. So we're working very hard on that. The problem is that one party will be in control of the legislature, and they will be the ones who draw the districts. they draw the districts in favor of themselves. And they may pack people who are of the other party all in one place, and meaning that then a lot of the other places in the state are of their party, which means, that they stay in power. There's not a lot of fairness in the competition in many places. So that's a really important thing. We need to have people from both parties participating. We need to have equality or equalness in people being able to pick and have, maybe the chance of one of the parties winning for a change. And that doesn't happen in a lot of places. We made Colorado's system pretty competitive in the districts.
Yeah, because there are some states that have these really weird lines that look like a giraffe or a snake and all of that, and we don't have that here.
Yeah, gerrymandering comes from the name of a governor of Massachusetts, and his name was Governor Jerry. And so the map that was drawn made it look like a salamander. And so gerrymander is how that got its name.
Why does the work of the League remain relevant in today's political landscape? I mean, I think we probably already know the answer to that, but what do you say?
Well, it works on a lot of issues that are very important today. Education, how do we get to equity? We have gun issues, safety issues that we work on. Environment, climate change. I mean, that's a huge issue, very, very important. We need to keep focused on it. We need to keep working on it so that we come to solutions. We need to be able to discuss these things in a sensible, respectful way. And there are more issues. I mean, you've seen a list of what the League works on, and it was mentioned that we have over 100 bills that we worked on this year, and just amazing array of issues.
Of the many things that you've done, what are you most proud of? I mean, you don't have to tell me all of them, but give me a few.
I started out working on water issues, and certainly that's a really, really important issue in Colorado. I was appointed to the Colorado Water Roundtable by Dick Lamb, who at the time was governor. That was pretty exciting, pretty interesting. There are a lot of things. There really are a lot of things. I think starting and working on the Nonprofit Association was one of them, and working with the Legislative Action Committee for the League. Those are, I'm not really joking, I'm just teasing a little bit, but at one point in time I was on the Metropolitan Sewer Board, and I was the Lowry Landfill Monitoring Committee, which is a Superfund site, and then I was on the Plumbing Board. So I classified myself as the Queen of Waste.
You have a bumper sticker with that on
I
it?
should.
Well, let me ask you, what advice would you give the next generation of leaders?
You need to stick with it. I pick a couple of things that you are particularly interested in. Don't feel guilty about the ones that you can't cover, because other people are probably covering those. And if you spread yourself too thin, you often don't have a lot of impact in any of those topics. Just really hone in on a couple things, and I think persistence is probably incredibly important. You also can't defeat, or when it looks like you're suffering from defeat, don't think you are. You are doing what you think is right. It just happens to be that other people don't think that, but keep going on the track that you think you should be going on.
I love that. That's great advice. Thank you, Tony.
Sure. Thank you.
Let's tell Tony how amazing she is in the chat. And here's another fan of Tony's, former Secretary of State Bernie Busher.
Hi, this is Bernie Busher, and I am delighted that the League of Women Voters is honoring Tony Larson with its Leader of Democracy Award. It is so fitting that you are honoring Tony. She's done extraordinary work, not just for the League, but for the citizens of Colorado. I particularly admire the work that she did helping us put into place the redistricting reform in Colorado, which has served as a model for the entire country. Her leadership and her wisdom and her hard work on that important project really has changed the way that our state functions and has been a great gift. Congratulations, Tony. I'm delighted to have had the opportunity to work with you, and I hope we get many more chances. Your friend, Bernie Busher.
I'm so proud to hear the difference the League makes for the residents of Colorado, and our honorees perfectly represent the ideals of the Colorado League of Women Voters. Tony is such a distinguished icon for empowerment, and Gitanjali is a shining example of the power of the upcoming generation of women leaders. We thank you for being here with us to celebrate the important work of empowering voters and defending democracy. This Lead of Democracy event is the League's largest fundraising event, and we are counting on your support tonight to sustain our push to be a force to be reckoned with whenever and wherever democracy is threatened. If you haven't already done so, won't you please click on the link below the video and support our fight as generously as you are able. Beth?
Thanks, Karen. I'm here to talk about our work this year, but first I have some really exciting news to share. We got a gift of $1,000 from Bernie and Mary Beth Busher in honor of Tony Larson. Thank you, Bernie and Mary Beth, for celebrating Tony and supporting the Colorado League. Everyone, please join Bernie and Mary Beth and make your gift to show that you believe in us too. Click that button below the video.
That's great news. Thank you. Last year brought so many challenges to all of us. Our democracy has been directly threatened, making the League more valuable than ever. Our voice is as necessary now as it was over 100 years ago when we were founded. And we have never been more engaged fighting for voter access, free, fair, and secure elections, transparent government, and citizen participation in our democratic systems. Hopefully, you are inspired by the League's work and will support us by clicking on the link below.
The League has been busy, but we want to hear what you see as the biggest threat to democracy in our state and country. Type your thoughts in the chat. Reproductive rights for our daughters and sons. Voting rights. Disinformation. We agree with your concerns and are working hard to combat those very issues. Our Legislative Action Committee is a fearless group of volunteer lobbyists from around the state that works to influence the Colorado General Assembly on bills that reflect League positions and principles. The Legislative Action Committee advocated for more than 100 bills during the 2022 session, including the Safe to Vote Act, which disallows open carry of weapons within 100 feet of polling places or ballot drop boxes, protections for elections officials who are under unprecedented threat of violence for doing their jobs, and the Reproductive Health Equity Act, codifying abortion rights in Colorado statute. Next up, the state constitution. Support of climate protection bills, including expanding corporate responsibility for recycling and safety from harmful chemicals. A number of bills to expand protections for affordable housing and their vulnerable residents. We advocated for media literacy education and support of local journalism because a free and active press is necessary to democracy. Also in 2021, the League put a lot of energy into educating voters about the importance of redistricting as Colorado began the process for the first time since the passage of Amendments Y and Z, drafted in part by the League, establishing independent redistricting commissions and removing the possibility of partisan gerrymandering. We created a statewide core of more than 100 League members to attend commission meetings and public hearings to assure the process was fair and proceeded according to voter intent. And after it was all over, we believe that Colorado's redistricting process was fair. Not everybody's happy, but it was fair. And now we're working with the Office of the Secretary of State and the State Demographer to make it better for the 2031 Commission by archiving demographic data at the precinct level to give commissioners more historic data to make the process even more fair. The chair of the Legislative Redistricting Commission even joined the League because he was so impressed with our work. Here he is.
Carlos Perez here at America the Beautiful Park in Colorado Springs. A beautiful state of ours requires great representation, which is why I served on the Colorado Independent Legislative Redistricting Commission. What I love about the League is that they were an invaluable partner on our journey to create fair maps for the citizens of Colorado. Thank you, League of Women Voters, and God bless America.
Thanks, Carlos. And thanks for your and all commissioners' extraordinary work on Colorado's redistricting. The League has also worked on drafting critical bills to protect Coloradans, including a bill to reinstate the right of 17-year-olds to vote in primaries if they'll be 18 by the general election, a right that was inadvertently taken away by Amendment 76 last fall. Another effort is a bill to make all ballot return envelopes postage paid. So stay tuned to hear about our progress. And following the success of our Climate Emergency Task Force, we created additional statewide task forces to increase advocacy efforts in the key areas of healthcare, housing, and news access and literacy. We expect to soon add alternative voting methods and education. And we're supporting our 18 Colorado local leagues in reestablishing observer corps, watchdog programs that both educate the public on the actions of governmental entities while holding those entities responsible to the will of their constituency. League members are monitoring city councils, county commissions, school and elections boards, and more to ensure sunshine laws are followed and elected officials are following accepted standards and not shortcuts. We've received more than 3,000 media mentions this year, much on the federal lawsuit we filed against the U.S. Election Integrity Plan. We're proud to stand with our partners, the NAACP of Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana, and Mi Familia Vota, to halt these intimidation and suppression actions. Despite these many challenges, we are relentlessly optimistic about making democracy work as it should, where all voices are heard equally and matter equally, where a rising tide lifts all boats and justice is served.
The work is tough, but it's dynamic and inspirational and so important to support. Thank you to all of you who are using the link below and showing how much our work means to you. I consider support for our league an important part of my own civic duty, and I know that you do too. Please join me by hitting that donate link below the video or using the QR code, which we will provide in a moment.
And now we have a very special honor. It is my pleasure to present our final Leader of Democracy Award to a very deserving student. National History Day encourages middle and high school students to create a presentation about the history of our democracy. The League of Women Voters Colorado presented a challenge to National History Day Colorado participants to produce documentaries about barrier-breaking women. This year's prize went to Clarice Reichley, who won for her film on Rachel Carson, an environmental writer whose influence inspired political advocacy for the natural world, including the Clean Water Act. Clarice just graduated from Denver School of the Arts and will be attending Bard College in the fall to pursue creative writing, history, and environmental science. Well, congratulations, Clarice.
Yes, thank you so much, Joanne.
So now tell us why you were inspired by Rachel Carson's story.
Yes, so I was really inspired by Rachel Carson because I'm really passionate about the natural world and protecting it and advocating for it, particularly through creative writing and through words, especially with the climate crisis and the climate catastrophes that we're really experiencing right now in Colorado and all over the world. I felt really impassioned to learn more about environmental history and particularly women who had been advocating for the environment. And of course, Rachel Carson is really popular for Silent Spring. However, as I was doing research, I wanted to learn more about her other books, particularly the ones she wrote about the sea and the ocean. And so I really wanted to focus on The Sea Around Us, which she wrote 10 years before Silent Spring and really talks about the beauty of the natural world and kind of rocked the science world a bit because of how lyrical and beautifully written it was. And so it was really inspiring as a writer to read her writing and hear about her story and the ways that her writing about the environment really advocated for protection and inspired people to also advocate for protection of the environment.
Did anything about Rachel Carson's story surprise you?
I think one of the things that surprised me most is she never married. She did help raise children of her nieces and had children that she was active in raising, yet she never married. And I think that was really radical in the sense that the science world, which was run by a lot of men at the time, and still I would argue is to this day, were really threatened by this unmarried woman who was using kind of unorthodox methods to communicate about science. And so that was a whole dynamic present in the project that really did catch me off guard. Yeah.
What's been the reaction from young people?
Yeah, one reaction I've had is kind of questioning how I would approach talking with someone who doesn't necessarily believe in climate change or who doesn't necessarily believe in the science talking about global warming. Other young people have kind of asked me whether they think my documentary would help communicate with people who don't necessarily believe in climate change. And it really caught me off guard when people asked me that, because I was like, my first reaction was I don't think that it does. But as I've been thinking about it more, I think that apart from climate change and the politics that have begun to surround it, I think that I would hope most of us can connect over some level of love or appreciation of the natural world, whether that's appreciating kind of the crops that can be grown from the land or appreciating the beauty of going on a hike in the Rocky Mountains. So as I was kind of reflecting on that question and that statement more, I realized I hope that my documentary is able to kind of become a conversation starter and help anybody across the political spectrum connect with the environment and love for the beauty of the natural world.
Well, Clarice, thank you for sharing Rachel Carson's story.
Yes.
and sharing it especially with the new generation.
Of course, yeah.
So why don't we take a look at some highlights of your piece?
Sounds good. Thank you. The more clearly we focus our attention on the wonders of the universe, the less taste we shall have for destruction. Rachel Carson. In 1951, Rachel Carson, a marine biologist from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, published The Sea Around Us, which employed easy-to-understand language, scientific facts, and poetic imagery to communicate about the wonders of nature. Her words inspired an unaware public to understand the importance of protecting the natural world. The Sea Around Us won countless awards and set the stage for her fourth book, Silent Spring, published in 1962, which communicated about the dangers of pesticides and was attacked by chemical corporations. As a result of her accessible language in both books, Carson motivated the public to take action for conservation. The ripple effect from her writing indirectly influenced the first Earth Day, the founding of the Environmental Protection Agency, and passage of legislation such as the Clean Air Act. In a male-dominated era, Rachel Carson boldly forged her own path as a female science writer, inspiring future women nature writers, scientists, and activists to use their words to advocate for the Earth.
That was such an inspirational piece. Let's all congratulate Clarice and tell her in the chat what we think of her project.
Ladies, what is important about today?
Today is for my daughters and my granddaughters and supporting their rights in the future.
Marilyn?
Oh, it's for all the women that have gone through this, and in the days when abortion wasn't available, so we don't want to go back to that.
We are closing in on the final minutes of our event, and I want to thank everyone who generously supported our cause tonight. If you've been waiting, now is the time to show your love for democracy and love for the League. Click on the link below to continue our urgent work. Thank you.
Before we close, I want to announce another generous gift of $1,000 from Irene and John Tynes. Wow, as if you aren't doing enough. Thank you, what heroes. Thank you, Joanne, for your support of the League's work. And thank you to all of our friends who have joined us and supported us tonight. We stand together as a powerful force while we continue to fulfill our mission to empower voters and defend democracy for all. Please join us. We'll be sticking around in the chat for anyone who wants to continue the discussion. Thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your evening.